Welcome to the Talent Development Hot Seat. I'm your host, Andy Storch, and I'm excited that you are joining me today for another great episode and conversation to help you up your game and improve your capabilities in the world of talent development. And today I've got a great conversation for you. We're talking all about career transitions and approaching talent problems because I'm talking today with the talent whisperer, Maura Lemon, who is Manager of Learning and Development at FDH Aero, leading design and implementation of talent strategies across an organization of 1,300 employees operating in 14 countries. She's also the chapter president of ATD Los Angeles and deeply connected in the talent development community in Southern California and beyond. Maura, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Andy. Oh my God, what an intro. That's incredible.
I'm
Really
excited that,
jazzed I'm here.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm excited to have you here as well. You've been a member of the talent development think tank community for a while. We've gotten to know each other over the years. And one of my favorite
Yeah.
things, most intriguing about you that I had to bring up last time we talked is that your LinkedIn headline says that you are known as the talent whisperer. So why is
Yeah.
that? Tell us the background behind that nickname.
Absolutely. That's so funny. It's gaining some popularity. It definitely isn't a short story. It was something that happened over time very organically. And sometimes I coach people that their skills or their passions and skills could be right in front of them. What happens sometimes is you're really good at something and it's effortless and your brain dismisses it because it's so effortless, everybody must do it. Like it can't be
Hmm.
special, right? You're good at it. But what I found out is it was really special. So left the Disney company to start doing something in talent. I wasn't sure what or where, but I sort of left to find that out, and I became an executive recruiter for HR executives. And I started recruiting, and I started hearing things like, "Oh, you're a different kind of recruiter. Oh, you're different." And I'm like, "Well, how do you mean? Why am I different?" And they're like, "You're just really good at this stuff. Like you know as much as I know." And I was really coaching them more than I was recruiting them
Hmm.
and like sort of basically doing leadership development as I was going along the way. And then when I was on some of those calls, somebody had mentioned it. You're like a talent whisperer. And I sort of just threw it out like, oh, yeah, haha, whatever. And then when I was working with a coach on my career, which is also another secret that a lot of people, almost anybody who's anybody, has worked with a coach at least once in their life. And this coach used to
Yeah.
be a political figure. And she's like, you need to have a position, you need it's marketing. What do you stand for? What is your headline? And so, LinkedIn's your digital business card. And I started trying to
Hmm.
think, well, what is my headline? And we did look at LinkedIn, and you kind of need a short phrase because when people are searching for you, you don't get a whole paragraph of space. You get to see
Right.
4 or 5 words. So I was thinking like, what is something really short, punchy that really talks about all the things that I do? And that term talent whisperer just came up, but I didn't identify with it. I'm like, well, I'm not a whisperer. That's going a little too far, right? Like I
Yeah.
don't know everything. There's a lot of
Yeah.
things I still don't know, but I put it up there and I was just like, I'll see how it goes. Like see how it feels. If it starts to sound inauthentic, I'll take it down.
Sure.
But the longer I had it on, the more it started feeling right, and I knew I had it when I was actually at my current job and I was doing a project and it went really well, and the boss's boss like, "Wow, you really are a talent whisperer." And I was like, "Whoa, this is like coming full circle." Like you it's just
Yeah.
such a great example of how sometimes we're our own worst critic, right? We don't
Hmm.
give enough credit to ourselves and
So
it's yeah.
So true. Yeah. Two things I
Yeah.
want to pull on there. Number one is exactly what you just said. We are our own worst critic. And
Yeah.
this is something that I've learned and talked to a lot of people about over the years, which is that people are very good at identifying their weaknesses. We all know our
Yes.
weaknesses, right? We know them intimately. I
Yeah.
could give you a list of the things that I'm
Right.
not very good at, right?
Rolls right off your tongue, right?
Yeah, for me, I know I tell people I'm not detail oriented. Just today, someone sent me a message and said, "Hey, there's a misspelled word in your LinkedIn headline." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And I looked at it like
Yeah.
5 times, and I
Yeah.
couldn't find the word. And then he's like, "No, it's this word." I'm like, "Oh."
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we know our weaknesses, but we don't identify or appreciate our strengths because we think, just as you said, that if
Yeah.
I'm good at something, probably everybody's good at that because it comes
Right.
easy to me. So it must not be that
Right.
hard. But the opposite is true. And so you've learned that about yourself, but it sounds like also helped a lot of other people identify their strengths as well.
Yeah, and when I do a lot of career coaching and used to work at Lee Hecht Harrison, which is the largest
Mm,
outsourcing firm, I think, in the world, I believe. And they taught us sort of the three-pronged career search approach, which the first phase one, is all about you. Like, do a skills inventory. What are your values inventory? What do you enjoy doing? What does the world need? And you're doing that work, which is really hard to do, right? Because you're not comfortable studying yourself and being honest about what you're really good at. And I really, resonated with your book because you had the I am
hmm.
exercise, which was awesome. And you had the list out your responsibilities. And I'm going to give you kudos, Andy, because I was mentoring somebody and I used that because she was
Nice.
completely dismissing a whole job skills. And I'm like, hey, let's do this exercise.
Let's talk
Just
about
tell
what
me
you
what
do.
you did on that job. And we
Yeah.
went through that and she had a couple of breakthroughs like, wow, why am I totally dismissing that? That was a skill. So it was
That's
really
amazing.
interesting.
You're
Yeah.
you're not the first person to tell me that you're using exercises from the book in coaching conversations. I love
I'm
to hear.
sure everybody's got to
Um,
read it.
Everybody, yeah, for anybody listening, you don't know what we're talking about. It's my new book, Own Your Brand, Own Your Career. Came out in September. It's available on Amazon. And if you don't like reading a whole book, we have a free digital workbook with all of the exercises and questions on our website, ownyourbrandbook.com. And if you like audiobooks, that's coming out soon. Actually, by the time this podcast episode airs, the audiobook should be out as well. So I love that because you're helping people identify their strengths. And then the other thing that you mentioned there, which is aligned with this book, is that it's important to get clear, not just on what you're good at, but what is the brand that you want to be portraying? How do you want to be known out in the
Yeah,
marketplace? And if you're really clear and confident in what that is and showing up in alignment with that and even putting that in your LinkedIn headline, people start to see you in that light as well. And it can attract opportunities as well as
absolutely.
other things.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time. I have to credit Disney. I've learned everything I've ever known from Disney. There was such a rich learning culture there. And they talked a lot about brand you. Like, what do you want to be known for? Because before you enter any room, they already have sort of a perception about you. So you want to develop a perception that works for you, right? Because you want your managers or leaders to be talking about you when you're not around in a favorable light. So at Disney, I would coach all my teams, what is your brand? We have cars, we have, you know, the Hondas, the Cadillacs, the Mercedes, which one do you want to be? And then you have to, obviously execute on that and have actions that will develop that perception. And I really believe I was promoted 5 times at Disney, and I really believe that was one of the reasons because
Yeah.
I did such a great job at executing on that brand.
Right. And making sure people know about the work you're doing. And what was the work you were doing at Disney that you got promoted so many times for?
Well, I did different things. So believe it or not, so I grew up on the Northeast and I was thinking I was going to be a lawyer. So I graduated with a pre-law degree and I was going to be
Hmm.
a lawyer. But I decided, well, maybe I should try working in the law field first before I took on that huge financial commitment, just to see if I liked the law. And
Hmm.
I started as a legal secretary, then I moved up to a paralegal. But then I relocated to California and I drove by the Walt Disney Studios and I'm like, whoa, that looks like kind of a cool place to work. So I ran home, went online. This is like not an exaggeration at all. Literally within 3 days, I had an interview for a
Wow.
legal secretary job.
Okay.
And I ended up getting it, and they had 3 openings. They're like, which one do you want? Like, this would never happen today, I don't think, because there's just such a shortage of jobs. But
Yeah.
back then, I was like way overqualified for the job. And they're like, we have three. What would you like? And we talked about each one. And so I picked one. And I knew in my head, I was like, this is just a start. I'm going to start as a
Mhm.
legal secretary, but that's not my end game.
Right.
And I went in, and even I was told it's really hard to get promoted here. And I thought in my head, okay, yeah, that's for everybody else. That's not going to
Mm.
apply to me. And I don't know where that came from, but I just knew. And fast forward 3 years from there, I got promoted to paralegal. 2 years from there, I got promoted to senior paralegal. And so I'm still thinking law school, right? So then
Hmm.
I take the LSATs, I get into law school, had really tough time writing the essay to get into law school. I choked, like I couldn't write it, like
Hmm.
hundred of different drafts. And finally, my husband at the time said, "Do you really even want to do this?" And I'm like, like I even went to bookstores and I bought a book, How to Tell If You Want to Go to Law School. Like I'm
Interesting.
literally researching this to really force it. I got in, but I didn't get into the school I wanted to get in. And that kind of changed it for me. And I'm like, you know what? I don't want to just be a lawyer. I want to be a lawyer if this situation happens.
Hmm.
So then I was kind of a little bit lost, but then I found the business and I went and got my MBA.
Hmm.
I fell in love with the business. And then, I was just searching excitement, searching what empowers me and fuels me. And
Hmm.
it's been a journey. So it's definitely not a left or right turn or, a straight line by any means. But
Right.
I think the best advice I could give anybody out there if they're kind of searching for something is what empowers you, what gets you charged up versus
Mm.
what drains you, what is really an effort for you. Why
Yeah,
why are we going in that direction when it could be way more work? Than it's sort of like Clifton Strengths, right? If you
totally.
follow your strengths, you're going to be much better at it. There still could be a ton of other people doing it, but they're
Hmm.
not going to be doing it like you because you're empowered by it.
That's right. Yeah, and if you can
Yeah.
connect it to a passion, a purpose, etc., this gets to my first book, Own Your Career, Own Your Life, which is that,
Yeah.
figure out what you love doing, what you're really good at, and if you can start to be intentional with building a career in that direction, I think everybody wants to feel happy and fulfilled in their careers. You have a
Yeah.
better chance of achieving that.
Yeah.
So, Maura, how did you get into? You mentioned you worked in recruiting, so that's sort of related to the talent space. But how did you end up getting into learning and development?
Yeah. Another interesting story. So at Disney, I was a leader of a team of 10 people.
Hmm.
And it was, believe it or not, it was in the revenue accounting department. I do not
Hmm.
have any accounting background at all. I took intro to accounting in college, and that was about
Yeah.
it. But I was really good at leading people and getting the work done through others in an effective way. And they really liked that. So they asked me to join their team to help them with how do we develop the talent. And they kind of made a deal with me. We'll teach you the accounting if you teach us the people management. And I'm like, okay, I'll try it. And I actually really thrived. I did it for 5 years. I really enjoyed it and a good part of my day. So I got a reputation because I ran their intern program for 2 years.
Hmm.
And then the junior people would join my team. I would develop them and then they would leave to go be seniors on other teams. And so it was like a well-oiled machine. I got really good at developing talent. And I started thinking that was only a portion of my day. Imagine if that was 100% of my day.
Hmm.
How energized would I be? But I didn't know how to do it or what that would look like. And Disney was awesome. They tried to help me kind of move about. They gave me some stretch projects where I could go on a different team and work for 6 months. But I didn't know what I wanted. So I had to leave to go seek it out.
Hmm.
And the recruiting was the easiest door to open because I had already recruited at Disney. I was recruiting all the interns, and for my team, I was the hiring manager. So
Yeah.
I had already done the job skills. So that was the first gateway. Was then I got into the industry I wanted, HR, right, or people management. But then that started to be not enough for me. It energized me, but only to a point. I still needed more. I wanted to be on the development side of things. So then I
Mm.
was able to, with the mixture of my recruiting and my Disney people management skills, I put those together and then was able to get into a company for a full-fledged talent development role that had a little bit of recruiting, but
Mm.
it was kind of a blended role. It was really a unique role. The hiring manager said, "Wow, you must have been over my shoulder when I drafted this job description."
It's the best feeling, right?
Right? Yeah, because my mixture of skills was exactly what they were looking for. So,
Mm.
lot of learning there, and then I was able to leverage that to get into the role that I'm in now, and so it's just been perfect ever since.
What have you learned from working in so many different organizations as well as different types of roles that's really
Yeah,
helpful for you when you think about supporting others with their careers and their own career
yeah.
development?
I think about this all the time because I'm a proponent of full cycle people management. So from the hire to retire kind of cycle,
Mhm,
and I call it an ecosystem. And I think the hiring process is really super important because that's your first entry point, right? So we got to get that process right. So I talk a lot about RAD talent. And what is RAD talent? So R stands for resilient, A is adaptable, and D for drive. If we can either hire for those skills or showcase that we have these three skills, it really lends itself to successful long term retention and just team development in general. So let me share like how well looking at a resume, how could I tell if somebody's rad? And I think
mhm.
about this a lot too. Like how can we quantify this? Because it really needs to be objective, right? It can't be just a feeling because it usually can get sideways real quick. So I've kind of come up with this is just my little opinion. I haven't researched it or kind of qualified it by any kind of scientific process or anything. But for
Mm,
resiliency, I kind of look at did the person go to school and work at the same time? Because that takes a lot of effort. You got to be resilient. That's going to be tough, right?
yep.
Or let's look at job tenure. Are we going into a different job every year? And I know that's trendy right now, but that sends a message like I'm not resilient when I'm hopping jobs every year. Soon as
Mhm,
it gets tougher, I don't like it, I'm out of here. That's
mhm,
not an example of resiliency. So that's why I am actually a supporter of job tenure. And I would say 3 to 5 years is a little bit more reasonable
mhm.
before jumping. If unless it's really bad, then obviously you got to do what you got to do.
Sure.
But then adaptability, how would we look at that? How could we see that? And I think of myself where I jumped or I moved from different industries with success. And I can give you, achievement statements where I've had success in multiple industries. Well, that proves I might be adaptable, right? Because I can be different things successfully in different environments. And then what about drive? Okay, that might be a tough one for people to see on a paper, but promotions, easy one. If you're getting promoted various times at one company. Another good thing could be what are you doing extracurricularly outside your job? So I'm president of ATD Los Angeles. I'm very, it is a symbol of giving back, but it's also a symbol of, I'm really driven to do something in this industry. I'm passionate
Mhm,
about it and I want to lead a team of volunteers and get work done through others that aren't even getting paid for it. And so that could be an example of, my drive. So,
mhm.
I'm still definitely developing this framework, and maybe there's a book in this or something, but
Yeah.
I do think if you hire rad talent, once you get them in the door, it's a lot easier to develop them
Oh,
and
yeah,
they stay
definitely.
longer. Yeah.
Definitely. You wanna get great talent and so that's the approach of looking at assessing talent as they're coming in, and then what's been your philosophy that you've developed on talent development in general? Like, how do you look at giving people access to the right development opportunities for them to continue
Yeah.
to grow?
Yeah. So that one's a little trickier, right? Because it's personalized. It has to be
Mm,
personalized. Everybody's different. Everybody's along this career journey at a different stage in their life. And it's sort of like teaching, got to teach to the masses, right? But somebody might need a little bit more boost than somebody else. So it's kind of hard to scale it. But some of the things that have worked really well in my experience is, starting off small, starting off with a smaller cohort of a program and then building it up from there. I talk a lot about business readiness where I'm at right now, and you really want to do a little bit of an assessment of where are these people along their journey because sometimes you have groups that have never had any training whatsoever. So you don't want to march in there with the leadership development program if they've never had any kind of formal corporate training. So you need to, be adaptable and figure
mhm,
out what's going to work for your audience. And then so I believe in the 70-20-10, and I know our, percent of learning. So 10% of your learning's in a classroom setting, 70% of your learning is in on the job, like in the
Mhm.
moment on the job. And I know our industry is kind of debating that. There's been some of our colleagues doing great work that maybe that's not the perfect percentage
Yep.
mix. But I think you
Right.
can argue that on the job in the moment is the most effective kind of training whatsoever,
Mhm.
feedback or training. So then what we're doing where I'm at now is, okay, yeah, I'll go in with a leadership development program, but then we'll do like feature Fridays or kind of somehow put it in the day to day.
Mhm.
And so that there's reinforcement of the material and there's also support of the concepts because we are learning and development, you're teaching culture. So
Right.
how do we pollinate the culture at scale? So,
Yep.
this is
How
just
do
some of my
you,
personal
if
success.
sorry to interrupt, I'm very
Yeah.
curious. Culture is such a big topic and question that so many
Yeah.
companies try to figure out, right? How do you think about impacting culture? What are the ingredients do you think that are most important to pay attention to influence culture in an organization?
It's such a big question. I mean, I think I'm just tipping the iceberg on that, but
Mhm.
definitely, they talk a lot about learning culture. Do you have a learning culture?
Mhm.
And, I think we can kind of make it more complicated than we need to. I always
Mhm.
go back to, so Google has done really some phenomenal HR work. And there's something, it's a little bit dated now. It's from 2012. Google did a Project Oxygen. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but
Yes, of course. Yeah.
okay, yeah, yeah. So they looked at what was successful of their employees. They looked at hiring, firing, and their promotion data. And
Mhm.
you would think that it would be like, oh, all the engineers or like education or something, math, science, STEM related. But what came out of that research was, are leaders empathetic? Do they feel like they're in a supportive environment?
Mhm.
Is there a tool to be communicating what our thought? Are they involved in the communication? Are we being coached? Are we getting that feedback? So some of this stuff is like low to no cost, and really any manager should be able to do these. And I think psychological safety is really, in my opinion, the number
Mhm.
one important culture
Right.
characteristic. Because if I feel safe to make a mistake and fail, I call it fail safely,
Mhm.
I'm going to grow leaps and bounds.
Right.
But if I'm living in an environment of fear, if I make a mistake and I say something silly and my boss chastises me in public, I am going to, at least maybe I'm speaking for myself here, but I'm going to disintegrate. I'm not going to grow in
Mhm.
that environment because I can't be my authentic self.
Yep.
So that's hard to achieve, right? Because it's going to be different for every person. But
Mhm.
those are some of the kind of characteristics I talk about for
Oh,
culture.
definitely. And I've looked a little bit at that, the research from that Project Oxygen. Creating psychological safety is so important. I think they said the number one indicator of
Yeah,
success for people is are the managers coaching them, right? Being a
yeah,
coach is the number one success factor of a manager. And so many organizations still struggle with that. You mentioned leadership development. I'm curious how you approach leadership development and giving leaders or managers what they need to be effective in the workplace and drive that performance and success for their people.
yeah. Another good question. So definitely, there's a lot of great organizations out there like Korn Ferry that I feel like have
Mhm.
kind of cracked this nut, where they'll study competencies and what kind of culture you want to have. And so I would coach any kind of team or organization or leadership to kind of come up with what are the competencies you want your leaders to exhibit to have a
Mhm.
certain culture. And we came up with the five that we like to see in our leaders. And then it's just a matter of pollinating information in these leaders and empowering these leaders to have this information. But also,
Mhm.
how do I execute? Awareness is half of it, but I need to learn how to execute on this information.
Right.
So I'm really big about practical training and examples. So I know we talk about psychological safety so much, but if I'm a leader who's never really had a lot of this training, how do I make sure my employees are psychologically safe? Like it actually really isn't that complicated. I think sometimes just getting them in a room and listening to them could
Mm.
be a proponent of that. Or if they do make a mistake, don't chastise them about it. Say, you know what could we have done differently next time? And so the just very small baby steps have huge impacts. So I
Mhm.
think sometimes our leaders work too hard, to be truthful.
Mm.
I think they really do work too hard, and then they burn out and they get tired, and then they don't do
Mhm.
the work, right? Because they feel like it's
Yep.
too hard. So I'm always trying to give our leaders easy steps that have big, major impacts.
Right. Yeah. Make it easy and let them take action on the things that they're learning. I remember when we talked before, you also mentioned the importance of talent reviews, which is something that every
Oh
organization is
yeah,
looking
yeah.
at and shifting and changing. What's your thought on the approach for those now and how leaders can help their people develop in their careers?
Yeah. So I have a huge PSA, public service announcement on this one.
Yeah.
So I see so many companies I've worked for do talent planning, and that's
Hmm.
awesome, right? You got
Hmm.
to do your skills gap analysis. You got to know who do you have, where do you want to go, what do we need going forward. But unfortunately, so many of them don't involve the talent themselves. And it's just
Mm.
such a miss, right? Because this is a relationship. You have employees and then you have a company and you have goals and you want to reach those goals, but you can't reach those goals without the people. So, what I would coach the companies to do is, again, I got to quote Disney here because Disney was so amazing at it. They had a whole cycle of talent planning where, yeah, you would do your analysis with the leaders behind closed doors. What do we have? What do we need? That whole thing. Use your 9 box, whatever framework you like to use. That's totally fine. You need to do it. But have the employees put in their voice too. So have them fill out some kind of profile. And I know on the bigger companies are already doing this. It's called Talent Marketplace. So people
Hmm.
are uploading their profiles, what do I want to
Right.
do? And they're matching it up. But there's a low cost to this to do it if you don't have the big budgets for the talent marketplace. All you have to do is get a profile from your employee. Like,
Hmm.
I know you have their resumes, but it might be outdated or might not be complete. They might have things they want to change. And I do believe it's okay to change your resume, right? But I'll give you a real good example of why this is so important. So I was working for this company. They had a bunch of showrooms around the country, and they only sold wholesale. So you go into these showrooms, and each product had like SKUs. It was all merchandising. So they had an open role. They needed a merchandiser. They had several hundred employees under their care as well. They weren't looking at any of them. They were going outside the company and trying to hire a merchandiser. And I was in talent development and I knew a lot of the folks. So I had this employee come in my office. Hey, I really want to go for that merchandiser role. And I'm like, oh, really? This person was a customer service agent. So I'm
Mm.
like, oh, really interesting. Why don't you share your resume with me? And I'm just listening at this point, thinking in my head, probably no way, right? They don't have the merchandising skills as customer
Hmm.
service. But looking at the resume and having a conversation with them, I learned he was the merchandising person for the Disney store at the park, Disney
Mm.
parks. And
Mm.
he described this whole thing. I had to do the SKU and the ticketing. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. This person's right, basically in our employ with
Mhm.
potentially the skills. Maybe, would still have to go through the hiring process and whatnot. And maybe there was
Right.
something missing at the end of it. But we weren't even considering this person at all. And
Mhm.
fast forward, they ended up getting the role because they interviewed with the leader. And
Yep.
it's always better to hire in, well, maybe I shouldn't say this
Internally.
statement. Stop retract that.
Okay.
Um, there's a lot of benefits to hiring internal, right? They
Yeah.
already know your company, they know your values, they know your systems.
Mhm.
So it can be a really great success story to hire internally. But if you're not even looking at what you have
Right.
literally in your backyard,
Right.
how do you know what you can do with them? So
Yeah.
it's just a PSA, please just have their voice in it. They don't have to have meetings, but just get something from them that speaks to what they want to do.
Right. I agree. Well, this is a good segue to the last thing I wanted to ask you about is, I'm very big on employees owning their careers. When I look at successful career development, I think you need organizations to provide the tools and the pathways and opportunities for them. You want leaders to provide coaching and guidance, but ideally you want employees themselves to take ownership of their careers, to be intentional, to be proactive in going out for those opportunities. And that's something that I speak on and teach in organizations. You had that opportunity to, to hire that person into that role because they proactively reached out. So how do you think about shifting that mindset and teaching and empowering employees themselves to own their careers so that they will be more willing to proactively go after those opportunities?
Yeah, totally interesting question. So I do, some of the things are popping into my mind are the grow coaching model, because I do
Hmm.
think, and I do coach this with the employees, it's a two-way street, right? The employee has to do all the work and take action and own their career, but the manager also has to help. Manager doesn't own it, but I do coach leaders to use the grow model because the R is the reality. So when we're going through it and your G is for goal, so hey, employee, what's your goal? R is for your reality. Well, what have you been doing so far on that goal? Where are you at with that goal? So then you're reinforcing, hey, I'm here to help you, but you got to do what you got to do to own your
Yeah.
career and make it happen. Right. So
Hmm.
I kind of do see a mixture of things. I see some employees going, oh, I never get promoted. My manager doesn't do anything for me. Well, what are you doing to help yourself? So
Hmm.
I do coach, uh, just pause here for a second.
Okay.
There's a lot of different ways you can move your career along while you're on the job. So I do coach this with a lot of folks where you could take on a stretch project, you could volunteer to be a project lead. That's how I was able. So I was an independent contributor and I wanted to be a manager. And I had to showcase that I could manage people, right? But I had a day job. And it's that conundrum. How do you get the skill without the job? Well, you volunteer. So I volunteered to run a training project with a team of 5 people. And then that was really successful. So then when I went into the interview for the manager and they asked me the question, give me an example of when you had to manage people, I had the answer, right? I had an example. So there's a lot of different things you can do on the job, but I do think it needs to be in concert with managers because managers might know things that you need to know that you're not aware of. And if
Hmm.
I have time, I'll give you one more example.
Please.
I was at Disney managing a team of 10 people and I had an employee who really wanted to be a manager. He's a senior analyst, really wanted to be a manager in the worst way. And I'm like, "Okay, I'm going to help you with this." So we met every other week one-on-one. This is just normal course. That's how we did it there. And I would watch his work and there was an assignment he got from the director of our department. And he was really good at it and it had to do with researching SKUs. He did the assignment, finished it, sent it to the director. It was like a clock in, clock out kind of job. He didn't even look at the final product. He didn't
Mm.
ask any further questions. He's like, "Hey, I'm done, boss. Here it is. I'm done." But there was, we're in the accounting department and there was a variance in the results. So the results were correct, but he didn't answer the question, why is there a variance? So
Mm.
the director comes back, "Hey, why is there a variance?" So in my one-on-one with him, I said, "Hey, you want to be a manager? A manager would have done that step for the director, so he didn't have to ask you. You should, predict some of the questions he might ask and give it to the person right up. Saves
Hmm.
time, makes you look like you can think the next step up,
Hmm.
and would just be another way of showing how you can do that skill."
Right.
That was really profound for him. He didn't have that perspective. So
Okay.
that's where the managers really can help the people leverage their skills as well, is
Yep.
show them what the next perspective is.
Right. Yeah. Give them the feedback, challenge them to take on bigger roles, but then give them the feedback they need to
Yeah.
improve and do better. Maura, are there any trends that you're following in talent development that you're excited about right now?
Well, I think you know the answer to that. AI, it's all over the place. I
Right.
just came back from the DevLearn conference, and I mean, I think every session was some aspect of AI.
Mm.
But there's a lot of good news. I think there's a lot of fear and a lot of headlines that sound scary. But it's really, I don't think it is as scary as it sounds, but I am following it. I do use AI on my job, but one of the big headlines out of DevLearn was we just have to repurpose or reposition ourselves as performance consultants and know that we are performance experts, right? That's what we do.
Hmm.
We develop talent and we're developing them to perform, right?
Hmm.
So that's always going to be needed. How we do it may be changing. We might need to be a little bit more of a partner to the business and how they can use it and how they can leverage it to for performance as well. But
Hmm.
I see it as an opportunity rather than a risk. So another PSA for people out there: don't be so scared. Just make sure you're gaining the skills and setting yourself up for success.
Absolutely. I agree completely. I'm playing with
Yeah.
stuff on a regular basis, creating things in ChatGPT. It's not everything, but we need to
Yeah.
lean into it and with that growth mindset and try things and experiment as we want our people to do inside our organizations as well. Or is there a book or a TED talk that has made a big impact for you or you often recommend?
Oh, geez. I mean, definitely yours, definitely. We've already mentioned it, was really great. I'm always quoting Liz Wiseman and the
Mm. Yep.
Multiplier book.
Yep.
I talk to leaders about that all the time, and I do think that's why they're working so hard is they're not multiplying their talent. They're trying to do it all themselves. So that's a big one.
Right. Yep.
Gosh, so many, so many.
You
Um,
mentioned you also got a chance to meet Dr. Keith Keating at
oh
DevLearn. He's
my
been on this
goodness,
podcast 3 or 4
yes.
times now.
Yes, and he signed my book. I was so fangirling out. I met him, and I have a younger generation child who sees college as maybe not a win. And so it's been really challenging for me because I'm a child of college professors. So I'm
Mm.
like, ooh, not to go to college. That's a big one. But I'm starting to come around. I talked to, Dr. Keating about that and his background and his story. I am a huge proponent of you define your success. And I
Hmm.
really do believe that college will always be there. And of course, if you want to be a doctor or lawyer, you need the college. But there's other ways to do it. And
Right.
I've met a lot of people like Dr. Keating's a perfect example, but I
Mhm.
actually have another colleague in New York who went back and got his degree and became a sergeant in a police department after
Mm.
dropping out of high school. So
Wow.
you define your story, and I think that's
All kinds of
really
different paths.
there's
Yeah.
all kinds, so many more now than there
Owning
ever
your career is
was.
up to you.
Yeah, exactly. It's a blank slate, so how you fill it, it's totally up to you.
Yeah. Last question for you, Maura. You've done a lot of different things, and it seems like you've learned a lot of lessons along the way. You do some career coaching as well for those out there in talent development who are looking for more ways to achieve success in their careers. What's one more piece of advice you would give?
Oh gosh, that's a good one. I mean, there's so many different avenues. I know there's a lot of different I think this is a trend. I don't know if anybody out there hears this and knows more about it. I'd love to hear about it. But I've been hearing about a trend, like, the companies have EAP programs where for mental health,
Hmm.
you have free services.
Yeah.
Those companies are now looking at it a little bit more holistically, where thinking about it as the whole human being. So mental health being one aspect of it, but also your career health could be another aspect to it. And so I'm seeing a trend for companies right now. It's starting with the bigger companies for obvious reasons, where they're offering coaching sessions for careers. So
Mm.
LHH was already doing it many years ago during the pandemic, and it's just another perk companies are giving, and maybe they get 2, 3, or 5 sessions a year on their careers. And so who's going to be coaching on the other side of that is all of us. So there could be some opportunities there, and
Yeah. To get
I
coaching and
don't.
get involved in
Yeah,
coaching as well
yeah,
to help
yeah,
other people,
exactly. I
which is
definitely want to. Another PSA is we're holding a box of gold during the skills gap shortage that we have, or they
mm.
claim that we have. Well, we're the experts on upskilling and reskilling, and let's champion for that and get our names out there and do the work we love to do. There's going to be
Absolutely.
plenty of it.
We are the key holders. We have the bag of gold, as you said, the
Yes,
hidden value, as Dr. Keith Keating talks about.
yes.
And we have an opportunity to bring that out to develop people, to truly help people succeed, and therefore organizations succeed as well. Well, Marta, this has been great. Thank you so much for coming on to share some of your background, your experience, your wisdom, and value with us. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to staying in touch and talking more in the future.
And right back at you, Andy. Thank you so much for all this work you do. I listen to your podcast all the time, and we're all enriched by what the work you do. So I don't know if you ever hear
Mm,
that feedback from the community, but we're really grateful. You know, it's a season of being gratefulness, and definitely you're on our list. Thank you
well,
so
thank
much.
you. Thank you. All right. Take care.
Take care, Andy.